Yeah, everyone, Rich Munroe here with V&V Investing Group. So we help short-term rental operators, whether you're managing, buying properties, or doing leasing, kind of navigate and scale a business. And we always kind of look at different service providers that are helping us in the short-term rental space. And I'm happy to have Brian here today from Hospitable to kind of go through their platform and talk about how their services and how their platform can help us run our businesses. So Brian, thanks a bunch for jumping on today. Love to hear a little bit about background. Yeah, I think you're also a host as well, right?
I am, yeah. So my wife and I we live in Athens, Georgia. So I think a lot of y'all are in Atlanta or around the Atlanta area. So we're in Athens, not too far. But we bought our first rental property in 2017. And then it was a duplex, and it was kind of a nicely put. It was kind of a rundown house. So we renovated it, did a lot of work to it, turned it into an Airbnb. And then since then, we've kind of grown. We started managing other people's properties and started like a management company in Athens. So, been doing the Airbnb short-term rental thing since 2018. So a few years now. So I'd like to think I know a couple things, but not everything. But it's definitely, the software market has changed a lot since then. So I started with Hospitable as a host in 2019, and the software has changed a lot. Competitor softwares have changed a lot. So there's a lot out there for hosts, which we didn't really have a few years ago, which is really neat.
Okay, very cool. So when you started out with that duplex, was that kind of like a house hack situation, or was it an investment property?
No, it was a house hack. And this was a true, we did all sorts of stuff. We did seller financing with the guy. We lived in one unit, rented out the other unit. We ended up refinancing it, got some money out, and then we sold it in 21 when the market was just crazy. We couldn't resist. We sold it for about 3 times more than we paid for it, which was really great, and then got out. So kind of hit all the highlights there. So we flipped it, we Airbnb'd it, we did everything.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So it was hard to not sell properties during that whole COVID era when, you list a property for sale and it ends up getting bid up and it goes, 20-30% higher than the appraised value. So it was really tough to not sell during that time period. We sold a lot of properties as well. And so let's talk about some of the basics of what Hospitable does, as a platform for some of the folks that are just getting started.
Yeah. So, as a host, what we really want is kind of distribution, right? So like a host wants to be listed in as many places as possible. But with that comes, the responsibility of managing listings, managing guests on different platforms. So what Hospitable does is it helps you manage your Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com listings all in one place. And we help you automate as much as we can for the day-to-day operations of the business. So what I like to tell hosts who sign up and when we're in our onboarding meetings is my goal is for every person who signs up for Hospitable is to save you as much time as possible and still provide a 5-star guest experience so you get a 5-star review. So for instance, I work full-time for Hospitable. My wife works full-time. We have a 6-month-old baby, and we have 9 vacation rental properties that we manage full-time. None of that would be possible without using Hospitable. So it manages guest communications from start to finish, cleaning operations from tasks to notifications to calendar management, manages smart lock codes. So creating codes, giving the guests the code. We have direct booking system that's connected to Google Vacation Rentals to bring in direct bookings, which saves us money over Airbnb and VRBO. Make sure our calendar is always up to date with our pricing software that we use. So it just automates everything, so I don't have to worry about it, which is really nice.
Very cool. Very cool. Makes sense. And it also gives you the ability to kind of get the most exposure for that listing on multiple platforms, puts the calendar in one place. You don't have any double bookings, kind of synchronizes everything. Also for guest communications to be able to have one inbox so you're not jumping from one platform to the next.
Yep, that's exactly right. So, a unified inbox is a great thing, especially we have an app. So we have an iPhone app and an Android app. So you literally, when you're on the go, because from what I know from experience and from talking to investors like yourself, real estate investors don't work in one location. We're always out and about. We're in our car. We're running from place to place, usually Home Depot to a house. But you have an app on your phone that you can manage your guest communication. You can manage your calendar. You can update your pricing, your availability, and that will push across all channels. So every connection or every listing you connect to us, we'll change your price in one place. We'll make sure your guest gets updated with their lock code, and then you can communicate with that guest on your phone if you need to. So it's a really cool tool to automate as much as possible, but make sure that you have the functionality and the flexibility as a host to still communicate with your guest when you need to.
Awesome, awesome. Sounds good. And so you're going to kind of give us a little bit of an overview of the platform today?
Yeah. We can do a short little demo.
All right, perfect. Let's just dive right in.
Cool. Let me go back. I'm going to go back to this screen. So we've got so this is kind of the overview screen when you first log into your Hospitable account. So it's going to show you your kind of what's going on a day-to-day basis with your property. So you can see anybody checking into your properties, anybody checking out, and any tasks associated with the rental. Typically, a task is going to be, like a property check, which we do. We check the properties before every guest checks in. A cleaning task is a pretty popular one. So a cleaning task after the guest is checked out. Maintenance tasks are going to show in here. Anything that's automated for a property on a day-to-day basis will show you in the task view. The unified inbox, which we were just talking about, Rich. So this is going to show you guest communications on all channels you connect to us. So personally, I'm on Airbnb and VRBO, and we do take direct bookings through our Hospitable direct booking website. So you'll see those conversations here with guests, from direct bookings to Airbnb to VRBO, all in one place. So instead of clicking between different tabs on your computer or fumbling between different apps on your phone, it's all here together. You don't have to worry about going from place to place. We will pull in everything and create a unified calendar for you. So the unified calendar is going to show you all of your reservations all together in one spot. It's color coded, so it's really easy to figure out what's what. So Airbnb is this light green color, VRBO is a lighter blue, Booking.com is a darker blue, and you see the direct bookings here are these like pinkish colors. So again, it's a nice way to see everything. You can click into a reservation. You can see everything about this reservation. I can hop into this guest conversation and message that guest. You can see all the automation that's set up for her. So these are all the communications that are going to go out to this guest. With the calendar view here, I can edit anything I want. So I can edit my nightly rate. I can block dates. I can make them available. I can edit my length of stay to make sure that I'm maximizing the occupancy and the revenue for the properties. Any change you make in the calendar here is going to automatically push over to the different booking channels that are connected to it. So it's just a way to manage everything in one spot and automate as much as we can. Guest experience is where we can automatically communicate with your guests. So from the time that guest sees you on the OTA, so they see your Airbnb listing all the way through till they check out, or from VRBO, we can send that guest automated communications, new booking inquiry, a new reservation, which essentially is a booking confirmation. Maybe they cancel their stay. We can automate a message, letting them know that, we're sorry about the cancellation. Come back anytime. A new request to book and a new inquiry are kind of similar, but we can send that guest, a message while you're sleeping in the middle of the night, letting them know that we got their message and we're going to take a look at their inquiry as soon as possible and give them an answer. Usually that's a nice thing to do for a guest, because if they're looking at your listing, they're probably looking at somebody else's. If you respond immediately, there's a higher chance that guest is going to book your property over somebody else's. So we can automatically communicate to those guests when they're replying to an event or when we're noticing an event, and we can schedule messages around the check-in, check-out time. So that's anything before, during, or after the guest stay, like check-in instructions, checking on the guest during their reservation, sending them, a review request. So making sure that, that guest understands that you expect a 5-star review and you're going to leave them a 5-star review. Maybe we want to try to, get them to fill out a post-guest survey. That's something we do. We get every guest to fill out a post-stay survey to make sure we get their, feedback on what went right during the stay, what went wrong, what we can improve on, to make sure that we're always kind of getting better as hosts. We have a couple different AI systems built into the software, which is pretty cool. So we can detect questions that the guest may be asking, and we can automate responses to those questions. So some popular ones that, if there's some Airbnb hosts in the audience, early check-in, late checkout, Wi-Fi, parking, discounts, pretty popular these days. So if we detect those questions, we can automate responses to those guests based on some information that you've put in our system. So again, it's a way to save time. It's a way to make sure the guest has a 5-star experience because they're getting an answer to their question when they need it. It's not costing you any time out of pocket, and it's making sure that the guest has a good stay. We can automate Airbnb reviews for you. So this is a big time saver, especially the more properties you have, the more listings you have, the more time consuming this can be. So we can automate all your Airbnb reviews to make sure that we leave a review for that guest. Airbnb sees that we're doing our job as a host, because that's one of the things they want us to do. And it's a good habit to have, to make sure that, the next host that hosts that guest, make sure that they had a review, and they can, see that that was a good guest for you, and they feel comfortable hosting that guest at their property. There's another AI system built into the software in the inbox. We have a ChatGPT integration. So this is a really neat new tool. So based on some information that the guest sent us, we can create a reply for that guest. It just takes one click, and then all we have to do is send it off. So this guest was saying, we're looking forward to our stay. Won't be there till the evening. My response based on ChatGPT was just, great to hear, safe travels. Let us know if you need anything. So I'm just going to go ahead and send that off to that guest. So that's a nice time saver to create some messaging that, may be nicer than you would create yourself. And it's obviously a lot faster, because you saw how quick it was to create that message. We integrate with a number of smart lock providers to be able to automate lock access for the properties. So this is a huge time saver. This is a really neat feature. So we connect, Schlage, Yale, August, Nuki, Igloo Home locks to Hospitable, so that we can automate guest codes for every reservation. So the guest code is going to be the last 4 digits of the guest phone number, so it's easy for the guest to remember. It's automated from check-in to checkout, so the guests can't show up early, they can't leave late, they can't come back a week later and steal all your stuff. We'll delete the codes out of the lock after they've left the property, so it's not going to bog down your lock with a bunch of codes. And then we'll communicate that to this code to the guest before they check into the property. So from start to finish, we're creating the code, we're making sure it's only active for a specific period of time, and then we're deleting it after the guest checks out. And then somewhere before they check in, probably in like a check-in instruction message, we'll add this code to their message. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. It's really easy. We can also keep track of the Wi-Fi connectivity of each lock and the battery level. So this is a really nice feature to be able to see in one area, what is the health of your lock? Is it connected to the Wi-Fi so we can create codes? Is the battery level sufficient enough so it's going to make it through the next guest stay? If not, maybe you should go change those lock codes. So this is a pretty cool feature. Operations, we can create not just guest codes, but cleaning codes, pest control, lawn maintenance, regular maintenance, anybody who needs to get access to the property, we can create codes for them in our system that are going to add it to the lock, so that your teammates have access to the property as well. So going back to the guest communication center, we can see that within one of my scheduled check-in messages, I give the guests some information about what they need to know to check into the property. I also give them information about the lock access. So all you're really going to do is put this little short code within your message, your check-in instruction message, and we're going to automatically send this code to your guests before they check into the property. So again, smart locks from start to finish, we're automating the whole process to make sure that the guest has access, and you're not doing this manually. So this is a huge time saver. And it's also, if you think about it,
go ahead and finish that thought, Brian. Go ahead and finish that thought.
I was just going to say, if you think about it, it's really safe and secure for you, for the property of the guests, your teammates, because not having a smart lock is okay, like having an electronic lock, but if it's the same code for a month or 2 months or 3 months, it's not the safest environment for people who are staying in a property. So using this system is really, really safe and secure.
Yeah, totally agree. And, we've used that kind of system for a while, and there's little things that you don't think about, like, guests will habitually forget stuff when they check out. And so you've got your cleaners in there getting the property ready for the next guest as checks in, and you've got somebody barging in on them. But with this system, that's not possible. Right at checkout, that code no longer works. And so the cleaners come in, do their thing, they lock the door, they're secure in there. And so it also kind of creates the inability for folks to kind of, check in early when they shouldn't be and things like that. So just out of curiosity, which particular electronic locks do you guys integrate with? Is there, I know you mentioned Yale, so is there a particular brand of Yale that works with this, or?
Yeah. So Yale Assure locks. So the locks that we integrate with are all Wi-Fi enabled. So Yale Assure, Schlage on code locks, August locks that have a keypad, Igloo Home locks that have a connectivity hub. And then I think Nuki is the same. It's got to have a connectivity hub to connect to. So it's the lock manufacturers all still make like a Z-Wave type lock, which can connect to Hospitable via a SmartThings integration that we have. But the native integrations we have with the lock manufacturers are all Wi-Fi enabled.
Perfect.
So, so for instance, like I have a number of Schlage locks in my properties and Yale locks. So these are Wi-Fi enabled locks, so they connect directly to the Wi-Fi of the property without having to have any sort of like intermediary. So there's no like a hub between the lock and the router, so they connect automatically. But Rich, to your point, so there's some backup, some features that we have specific to guests getting access early or getting access late. So we have what's called a timing buffer, which is a pretty cool feature. So typically we would make the code active from check-in to checkout, which is really great and secure for everybody. But we all know that guests show up early and they tend to leave late. And they're not going to communicate with you that they're doing either of those things.
Right.
So if a guest shows up, your check-in time's 3 o'clock, they show up at 2:45, they can't get in the property. Most likely they're going to message you, right? They're going to say, hey, why can't I get in the property? As a host, you kind of want to respond and say, well, because it's 15 minutes early, you don't have access to the property. You want to kind of be, kind of put it back on them. But at the end of the day, like we can create a buffer that lets the guest in the property a little bit early. So I have mine set to an hour before, an hour after. The last thing I want is for a family to check out on checkout day and our front door locks and locks their dog or their baby in our house, because then they're going to freak out and they're going to call me. So we give them a buffer so they can get in and out a little bit early. We don't communicate this to the guests in any way, shape, or form. They still think my check-in time is 3 p.m., my checkout time is 11 a.m. But this at least gives us the ability to not have to be contacted if, in the event they need to get in early or need to check out a little bit late. The other one we have is a backup code feature. This is a really neat one. All these locks are reliant on a stable Wi-Fi connection, which most urban properties are going to do pretty well. There's a lot of hosts out there who have properties maybe in a rural setting, in the mountains, North Georgia, Sevierville, Tennessee, things like that. So being able to have a backup code in every lock that's connected to Hospitable in the event that your Wi-Fi goes down and we can't push a lock code to the lock. So what we'll do is before the guest shows up, we do what's called a health check on the lock to make sure that the code we created is active on that lock. If it's not, then we'll automatically send the guest a message and let them know what their backup code is. So without you knowing about it, without you needing to like interact with Hospitable or your lock in any way, we'll automatically give them a secondary code that they can use to get in the property. So it's just trying to make sure from start to finish, the guest has access to the property. You don't need to be involved in any way, shape, or form, except for changing lock batteries periodically, and we can just manage the whole process.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We have a quick question that I think is kind of related. Ryan's asking, is there any support for Habitat, or if that is an API? I'm not sure if do you get where he's going with that question?
Ryan, Habitat, is that, I'm guessing that's a lock, or it's like a smart lock company? Is that what that is?
Possibly. Ryan, can you give us a little bit more to go on? We're not crystal clear on what you're asking there. But we'll come back to that, Brian. Let's go ahead and keep going. If Brian can give us some more details
so
on what he's asking.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that is. I'll go ahead and tell you, Ryan, we don't integrate with any company called Habitat. That doesn't mean we won't in the future.
He says like a SmartThing hub. So it sounds like you mentioned SmartThing. So again, it looks like it's one of those different hubs that lets you connect your different smart devices.
Okay, so we don't integrate with Habitat specifically. We integrate with SmartThings. If the Habitat hub can integrate with SmartThings in any way, then it would integrate with Hospitable. So I don't know if that's possible. But we integrate with locks. Let's go to the lock screen. Let me show you. So we integrate with a number of different lock manufacturers. So August, Igloo Home, Nuki, Schlage, Yale. And then there's third-party systems like Jervis and SmartThings that can integrate with a number of different lock systems. So if that Habitat hub can connect to SmartThings to essentially connect your lock from point A to point B, then we would integrate with that kind of through SmartThings, if that makes sense.
Got it.
I don't know if that's possible, but you could always check on that. And then any hub that connects to SmartThings would work as well.
Okay, perfect.
But kind of moving on. So operations, we can connect your cleaner, pest control, lawn maintenance, handyman, anybody who helps you on a day-to-day basis with the properties. We can send them automated text messages and emails. We can create tasks on their calendar. We can share calendar access with them. So at the end of the day, we can make sure that your cleaner, as soon as the reservation gets made, we can text your cleaner and let them know that there's a reservation. Right before or after checkout, we can send them a text and let them know, hey, don't forget you have a cleaning at this specific property at this specific time and day. We can let them know there's a same day check-in, check-out. So you've got a guest checking out, you got another guest checking in. So they make sure that's the high priority clean of the day and over other cleanings that they have to do. And again, we can share calendar access with your teammates, and that's pretty similar to the calendar access that you have. So going to our user management feature, which is where we would add your cleaners or add anybody to Hospitable, you can give them custom access, choose the property that they have access to, and then choose the specific features you want to give them access to. So for a cleaner, the majority of cleaners just need a calendar view. It's really a view only mode of the calendar. If your cleaner does more things for you, like maintenance related, maybe they interact with guests in some way, you can choose different features of the system to give them access to. But really, the calendar view is going to give your cleaner the ability to log in, see the calendar. They won't see pricing in the calendar. They won't be able to see any sort of financials for the reservation. They will see how many nights the guest is staying, how many guests, children, pets, things like that. So they know how to set up the property for you. They'll know when there's a same day check-in, check-out. So they know, obviously, this next Thursday, I've got 2 checkouts. One of them has a check-in the same day. So my cleaner knows that's the one they need to do first, and then they can hop onto the second cleaning. So it's just being able to give somebody access to seeing a calendar, automating some text messages to them. You're not doing any of this stuff. You just set it up one time and our system does it for you automatically. And then again, with the smart lock feature, we can create codes for your teammates as well, so they have access to the property whenever they need it.
Very cool.
There's a lot of co-hosts out there, and I don't know if your community has any co-hosts, but we're very, very co-host friendly. So you can connect as many Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com accounts as you need to Hospitable to manage your listings, your properties, your guests. And then there's ways to communicate, through the co-host account instead of the listing admin account, which is a pretty cool feature. So essentially, as a co-host, you want to be the point of contact for your guests, and there's ways to do that through Hospitable so that all communication flows through your co-host account instead of through the listing admin account. And then a new one, and Rich and you and I were kind of chatting beforehand about new features. Direct is a pretty new feature for us. So it's been out for about a year, but we're making a lot of improvements and a lot of additions to Direct. So this is a pretty cool feature. So there's a couple options with direct booking. And just so in case anybody's not familiar, direct booking is where you set up your own website and take bookings direct through you instead of sending guests to Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com. So this is where you own that reservation. It's cheaper, more cost effective for you. It's cheaper for the guests. And then that guest from now on will go through your website instead of going online and going to Airbnb and VRBO. So we can help you create a website in our system. It's really, really simple to create a website in Hospitable. It can probably be up and running in about 15 minutes. You don't need to have any sort of experience creating websites. It's really just a five or 6 step flow to add a custom domain if you want one. You choose some design options. So you can add a logo. You can choose a template that makes sense for your properties. You can add custom images and text. And then we're going to pull in your listings from Airbnb. So you don't actually create the listing pages. We are going to create them for you based on your Airbnb listing. So it's a really, really fast system to get up and running. If you have a website already that you want to continue to use, we can add our booking widgets to your current website. So a booking widget is really simply just a little bit of calendar view to show the guest exactly what's available for your property, so they can choose their dates and they can see the pricing and associated with that, and they can request to book your property. So this could be added to a custom website that you have outside of our system so that it automates the booking flow and everything comes into Hospitable once that guest has booked the property. With direct booking, there's a bunch of really cool features. So we can process the payment for you. So you don't need to actually connect a payment processor. You just connect a bank account. We'll process the payment for you. We screen all of your guests through a tool called AutoHost to make sure that it's the type of guest you want for your property. We capture their driver's license. We make them take a selfie of themselves. We make sure that the driver's license matches the reservation. The selfie matches the driver's license. And then we'll provide up to $5 million of damage protection for each reservation. So it's just a way to, take bookings outside of the OTA sites and feel more comfortable in taking that direct booking. Whereas before, you could take direct bookings, but you were kind of bolting on different systems to provide damage protection and insurance and payment processing and all that, we can kind of do it all in one together in Hospitable. We can also list your property on Google Vacation Rentals, so we can give you an extra listing on the internet. So this isn't something you have to create. We'll create this for you, and it'll essentially give you, a little bit more visibility, especially on Google, so guests can find your properties and book direct through you to save money and save yourself some money. So this is a really, really cool new feature. And we're going to be rolling out a bunch of new direct booking features as well, like different payment processing options if you wanted to use that, more medium-term rental features in the future, and different things.
Very cool. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. It's really tough to get comfortable with venturing out and doing direct bookings without having a lot of those protections in place. There's a reason why Airbnb is good at what they do. They've got a lot of that stuff figured out. And when you start doing stuff on your own, you got to make sure you've got all those pieces in place that give you that confidence to take on that direct booking, to have that coverage for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it is a little nerve-wracking to take your first couple like direct booking guests, but it's nice like seeing them come in, over time. We were talking last week internally. There's a few hosts. I think we have maybe 6 or 7 hosts who are using our system who've done over $100,000 in direct bookings since we started this. So it's possible to really, make an impact with direct bookings as a host and start moving away from the OTA sites. And I'm not one of those hosts that hates Airbnb. I love Airbnb. I think they're great. For 3%, they provide marketing and payment processing, which is pretty, hard to beat. But it is nice to feel more ownership of your business and to be able to, if you need to cancel a reservation, not be penalized for that because you have a pipe that burst or something like that. And Airbnb is going to delist your property or charge you a $200, cancellation fee. And I am speaking from experience. So, it's nice to have a direct booking site that you can get guests on. If you need to cancel a reservation or if you need to not accept a reservation, you don't need to feel, hesitant about doing that. And how is that going to impact your business?
Definitely.
That's kind of an overview, Rich. I mean, the last thing I could share, we do integrate with a number of different software tools. So from guidebooks, accounting software, dynamic pricing tools, marketing platforms like MailChimp and Stayfi, guest monitoring, so Alertify, Minute. So there's a ton of different things we integrate with to kind of, these are bolt-on like third-party integration. So if you need anything to help you manage the guests on a day-to-day basis, there's a lot of integrations here that can help you kind of do different things that Hospitable doesn't do.
Okay. Now, do you still have the Pulse feature?
Pulse. Was it heartbeats? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, heartbeats. You still have that on there?
So that, just to be clear, is that the one where we would like update your Airbnb listing every day?
Yeah.
We don't. So Airbnb released something. I think it was in 2020 or 2021. They kind of changed. Obviously, we all know they change things periodically on how their system works. But they changed their algorithm to where those listing updates really have no impact anymore. So we retired the heartbeats feature. So we do a calendar sync, which does kind of update your calendar every day to make sure that your calendar is up to date in Hospitable or on the listing sites at Airbnb and VRBO. But what Rich is referring to, we used to do something where we would, I think it was add an exclamation point or a period to somewhere in your listings or swap photos back and forth every day, because that was at the time Airbnb's algorithm was based on, or part of it anyway, was based on how often hosts update their listing. So it was impactful then. It's not so impactful now. So we retired that feature. I know there's a couple other companies that still offer something like that, and they still say it works, but it really doesn't. So
interesting. So I didn't realize that. So they no longer have that. They no longer have that in their algorithm.
They don't. I mean, it makes sense. As Airbnb as a company, what they want and what's important to them is the same thing that's important to us. Like, we want 5-star reviews. We want to make sure that we're getting booked. So that's how they list your property based on how many guests are searching for you, or how many guests are finding your property in the search, how many guests are clicking on your property, how many guests are booking, your 5-star reviews. So that's kind of how the algorithm pushes your property up to the top. And you can search all this stuff on Airbnb and VRBO to see how your listing is performing. And there's a pretty cool software. It's called RankBreeze, which we
Yeah.
do integrate with.
Mhm.
RankBreeze does show you, on a day-to-day basis where your listings are in the rankings on Airbnb. And
Yep.
Kelvin, their founder, is a really, really smart guy. He's really great. He can kind of talk to you a little bit more about how that can work. But the rankings on Airbnb have changed a lot, like how the algorithm works, and I think for the better. So it was kind of the Wild West before, where people could kind of game the system a little bit, and it worked out for a lot of people. But now it's more for quality, and I think it works
Mhm.
better in the end for hosts that are actually trying to do a good job.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree with you there. So the last question I have, and probably so folks can kind of understand how you guys are different. What does the pricing look like for Hospitable?
So it varies from 29 to, well, the starting point is $29 to $59 a month. So that's one listing, and it depends on what your needs are. So if you want to connect a smart lock and create a direct booking website, the entry point is $59 a month. If you don't want smart locks, you don't really care about a direct booking website, you just want to be able to make sure your calendar is up to date, automatically send messages to your guests, your cleaners, and update your pricing in one place. The $29 is the entry point for one property, and then it's a per property cost after that. So it just depends on how many properties you have is how much the software costs. So we don't have pricing tiers that kind of give you a price based on like 10 to 20 properties. It's just 1 to 2 properties is this much, and then 3 costs you this, 4 is this much, and so on.
So just as an example, if I had 10 properties, what would that round up to be as a monthly expense?
Yeah. So if you had 10 properties, the monthly cost would be 179.
179. Okay. All right.
So it's 59 for the first 2, and then $15 per property after that.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And that includes everything we talked about. So connecting smart locks, direct bookings, communicating with your cleaners, making sure your calendar's up to date. Everything we've went over is included in that cost.
Are there any platforms that you are not integrated with? So, I'm pretty sure you're VRBO, Booking.com. You mentioned Google. What about Marriott Homes and Villas?
We're not. I know that our product team was kind of talking to Marriott a little bit. I don't know where that conversation went or where we are in the stages with Marriott. I know Marriott's a little different than the other listing channels. Like, they have a minimum threshold for hosts or property managers who try to sign up for their service, and they also have quality standards. So I don't know, how or when we would integrate with Marriott. I know we're currently not, but it's something we were looking into at one point.
What are there any others that you're integrated with that we haven't talked about?
No, so it's Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com, and those 3 channels account for something like 85% of all online bookings.
Yeah.
And the majority of them are, they're messaging based platforms, so you're interacting with the guest in some way. Expedia and TripAdvisor aren't that way. If somebody books a property, they get a confirmation email. There's really not a whole lot of hosting going on. Whereas the other channels are a little more host driven, which is, I think, why we chose to stick with Airbnb, VRBO, and Booking.com. That's changing. I'm sure there's going to be more channels in the future that we integrate with as things grow. So we'll just kind of see. I can't really share any details on, because I'm not trying to be coy. I don't really know anything. Our product team keeps things kind of close to the like under the surface a little bit until it's ready to come out. But I'm sure there will be more platforms in the future who we integrate with. Especially more like medium term platforms, because that's kind of the next thing that a lot of hosts are turning to, especially with when we were talking about in the beginning with regulations being what they are now. So Furnish Finder, Hopper Homes, some of those platforms like that, where hosts are trying to list their properties in different places. We actually do integrate with Hoofy, so that's another site that a lot of hosts use to try to do longer term stays. So I forgot about Hoofy, but we do integrate with Hoofy.
Cool. All right. So I put Brian's calendar link in the comments below. So if you guys want to schedule a quick 30-minute call with Brian and do a deeper dive with him, as far as any other questions we didn't cover on the call today, feel free to do that. Brian, thanks again so much for jumping on. This has been very informative. I had told Brian that I used Hospitable many, many years ago. So there definitely have been some added improvements. They didn't have the lock integration and some of the other features that you touched on, the direct booking option as well. So it's definitely come a long way, and it's been very enlightening for us today. So thanks as well, everybody, for checking us out. So again, B&B Investing Group. So if anyone watching is ready to kind of start and build a scalable business, you're ready to take action, you want to learn how B&B Investing Group might be able to help you out, just reach out to me directly on Facebook Messenger, and we'll schedule a quick call and see what your goals are and see if it's a good fit for you or not. So Brian, thanks again, buddy. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.